All right, so we're back into the Tinkerer's base here, and we're going to go a little bit deeper on into this location. Our team is the Just Shut Up Already team. Spider-Man, the Human Torch, the Thing, Deadpool. Alternatively, we could put Iceman into this group, maybe somebody else. I don't entirely remember. But we're going to break all of his TV screens. And we're going to try to, get to the point where we can finally get out of this first stage of the game. Get through Latveria. Now that Fury has done what more or less he needed to do regarding Lucia Bombardus, we can deal with these guys. And that means that we can go back to talking about the Phase 4 here for Marvel Studios. Now, last time we left off, we were talking briefly about Shang-Chi, mentioning the Mandarin, the Ten Rings, potentially the Mandarin's comic book origins being used, the possibility that Mandarin himself wouldn't be the main villain in the Shang-Chi movie. But moving past Shang-Chi brings us to WandaVision on the schedule. And I think WandaVision's a cute name. I often find myself disagreeing with folks over what makes a good name and what doesn't. But WandaVision, the play off of television, but also to hint that we're going to be bringing Vision back. And now the question is, how are we doing that? Are we rebuilding him with the aid of a super scientist? And we have several possibilities. If Vision is fixable in a mechanical, scientific way, then you've got, it's unlikely that Bruce Banner would be the one to do it, but Hank Pym is certainly around, and that would have some comic book connections if available. Shuri might be able to do it in Wakanda. I'm pretty sure Peter Parker wouldn't be able to do it. Because again, you don't just want to denote a character as being a scientist in all things science. Which is, part of the problem that the Marvel Universe sort of ran into with Tony Stark. But I think that'll sort of help them now that Stark is gone, because they won't be able to sort of use him to work their way out of problems, any problem scientific, at least until they introduce Reed Richards, and then they'll basically have the same problem again. So that's one angle that Wanda could go for, but the Scarlet Witch has the ability to mess with reality through the fact that she has just a natural gift to use magic. So she could attempt to bring Vision back on her own using her magical powers. My guess is that since she doesn't have the technical skill that put Vision together, which I guess I should bring up Helen Cho as a person in universe who theoretically could fix Vision, since she produced at least some part of him. But Wanda could try to bring Vision back into existence. Obviously, the problem is the lack of the Mind Stone. How much of Vision's personality and character was driven by his ability to commune and control and use the Mind Stone? Even Vision wasn't sure in the times when he was alive. So I think so it's going to be interesting to see how they bring Vision back. It'll be interesting to see who the villain of the piece is. And the other thing that's going to be interesting to see is how does it end? At the end of the miniseries, will Vision still be alive? Will the entire miniseries be basically a House of M dream sequence, where Scarlet Witch has basically just conjured an entire world for herself that doesn't really exist anywhere at any time, but one where she's allowed to live with Vision even though Vision's not really there, or something like that. Let's give a pause to... Right now we're breaking some locks. We're also busting up more of the Tinkerer's stuff. There we go. And now we've engaged 2 of the 3 capacitor locks. And inside these little tubes are more of the Tinkerer's kind of creations. I guess they're robots. Yeah, well, cyborgs. So there is some part human part to them. There are 8 of these wandering around. Well, I say wandering, but there's 8 of these located somewhere in this level. You're not going to find... I think we had to be more careful in looking around for them. I don't think we're going to get all 8 here, but I'm not really worried about that too much. I'm just looking for that 3rd capacitor lock. But hey, if we notice more of these things, Spider-Man overshooting, the villains are kind of clustered in this nook here. But I guess if we find more of them while we're looking around, we might do something about it. I mean, Human Torch is stuck on the wall here. Okay, finally got everybody where Spider-Man can hit them. And now they're all webbed up. So do I run up and punch them? Nah, just stay back and let the webs do the work. Well, this guy's got a little bit of health bar to him. Oh, he's also got a green power-up icon. Making him a commander character, you know, a slightly more powerful character. They're not called commanders. I mean, that's just it's just essentially what their role is. Alright, so we're in pretty good shape here. Getting closer to the end of the level, you can see we've got 2 fusion attacks available to use on either a mob or the final boss, depending on depending on how things work out. So we've got that going on. So I don't know where WandaVision necessarily will leave off. What is known is that Wanda is supposed to play a role in the next movie in Phase 4, the 3rd movie of Phase 4, which is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, in the original conception of Phase 4, this was going to be a spot occupied by the 3rd Guardians movie. But because of the difficulties, because they fired James Gunn and then brought James Gunn back, they lost time. And they lost time, and therefore they had to rearrange the schedule such that you don't even have a date for the 3rd Guardians movie within Phase 4 as we currently know it.
Your parting gift today is your very own concussion.
So instead we're going to get the 2nd Doctor Strange movie. It's titled The Multiverse of Madness. So clearly we're going to be bouncing around between dimensions in that one. And the Scarlet Witch is going to be there with us. But otherwise, Scott Derrickson, the director of the movie, I think has come out and said that it's going to be a horror movie. There's that third capacitor lock I was looking for. Yeah.
Dead set on this idiocy, are you?
It said it's going to be a sort of going to be a horror movie, so yeah, that leaves the door open for all kinds of interesting characters and creatures that could show up. I mean, there's lots of loose ends in the first Doctor Strange movie, and there's also some loose ends as far as characters who are going to appear in the MCU sooner or later that could use a Doctor Strange movie as a vehicle to do that. So, bring up the fact that we've left Mordo. At the end of the first Doctor Strange movie, Baron Mordo, Mordo, whether he'll decide to call himself a Baron for some unknown reason later, we'll just have to get back to. Mordo was on his quest to basically reduce the use of magic, probably eliminate the use of magic worldwide. And between the Doctor Strange movie and the snap, we don't know how effective Mordo might have been in doing that. Certainly in Endgame, there are plenty of magicians who show up, to help out in the final battle. So he didn't get everyone. And an interesting point would be whether or not Mordo himself was snapped. If Mordo was snapped, you can. All it does is tell you that, he'll be more. He won't have aged. Doctor Strange also snapped, so he was also gone for 5 years. If he wasn't snapped, it kind of begs the question of what he was doing during that period of time, and particularly since the snap would have basically killed off half of all the wizards or sorcerers on the planet, which would have been something that Mordo would have been trying to do. We actually did find all 8 of those guys. So, if you want to see how Mordo relates to a multiverse movie, it's possible that Mordo could investigate assistance in his plan to get rid of all magic. And, of course, who would he find assistance from? Well, a lot of indications seem to point to Nightmare being a potential villain in that movie. Another possibility for the origin of the Multiverse of Madness is Wanda coming out of the events of WandaVision, potentially messing things up in a way that she and Doctor Strange then have to go and fix. And even there, you could still have a Mordo storyline where, whatever she opens up, Mordo finds useful to him, and therefore, he wants to be involved in whatever they do. As far as speculating as to who else could show up in a second Doctor Strange movie that has the title Multiverse of Madness, we could see an introduction of Mephisto. We've already seen elders of the Marvel Universe before, with the Collector, the Grandmaster, and even Thanos to an extent. And we'll have seen Eternals by that point in time. So there's no reason why Mephisto couldn't make an appearance in one of the realms that they visit for whatever reason. And if Doctor Strange and Mephisto are in the same place, then it's also possible that this will be our introduction to Victor Von Doom. We could get the Victor Von Doom's storyline in a very brief fashion from Triumph and Torment, except in this case, they would probably run across Victor when they visited Mephisto's realm, as opposed to him being the reason why they were there. My hope is, my original hope was always that there would be a Doctor Doom origin movie that would end with him and Doctor Strange freeing his mother from Mephisto's grasp. Only for Doom to basically reveal that, it wasn't enough, kind of thing. All right, so we're getting rushed by a lot of these cyborgs here, and the reason I'm not trying to clear them out, besides the fact that my capture card evidently crapped out on that particular spot. I'm trying to save my 2 fusion attacks for the boss. But if I need health, I am not opposed to going ahead and just blasting them, assuming I've got enough guys to do it with. You can see Spidey's in the red right now, and has been kind of that way. I don't think anybody else is in the red. I mean, Deadpool regenerates, so he's not really an issue here. And now I'm looking for things to break that might release just a little bit of health. You can see them getting experience from breaking them. The little white circles, but not the red circles that, I could use. As we try to get our hands on this reactor over here. We're going to disconnect the first part of it.
That should allow you to break the reactor shields and gain direct access to the core.
So, I think there's an outside chance that Victor Von Doom would be introduced in that situation. Since it seems like a Fantastic Four movie is a certainty, and I've always been of the opinion that they needed to reintroduce the Fantastic Four piecemeal in other movies and then bring them together for their first big production, maybe without their powers at first. Like I thought that they, maybe introduce Johnny Storm in Spider-Man Far From Home. And they could have gotten away with it too in that movie, because you could have argued that the reason that Spider-Man and Johnny Storm didn't know each other is because of Blip. And then when everybody aged up 5 years, all of a sudden Johnny Storm is a senior in high school, along with all of Spider-Man's friends. Or potentially, if they're waiting for Spider-Man to go to college, Johnny Storm could be a guy who, maybe... I know I'm kind of introducing Johnny Storm a lot younger than he had to have been in the comics. But as we basically start mashing on the Tinkerer's robot here. And you see I've used one fusion attack already. The nice thing about Spider-Man's targeted fusion attack, and I think it's with Ben Grimm in this case, is he gets 2 swings at it. And as far as I know, that's better than the ones where it's only 1 swing. You know, there was some talk of how would you introduce the various characters. None of this is from any Disney stuff or whatever, but you know, you need Ben Grimm to be an accomplished military pilot. You could introduce him. He could be working for anybody to start with, including S.H.I.E.L.D., or at least what used to be S.H.I.E.L.D. So, you know, obviously Captain Marvel wouldn't be the place to introduce Grimm's character now. Okay, we think we missed with that one. So we'll have to build our meteor back up and try again. I don't know if I'm a big fan of these numbers that appear. It does tell you you are doing something, though. So just in case you were concerned that they weren't taking damage, you don't really have to worry about that. Got a couple of just health things just lying around here. We're going to deal with those. I mean, Ben Grimm you could use sort of introduce as a pilot in any particular scenario. I mean, he could have been, you know, one of the guys in either any of the Avengers movies, Quinjet pilot of some kind. There were lots of places, lots of ways you could introduce Ben Grimm. Even the Black Widow movie could find some use for a transport pilot named Benjamin J. Grimm. You know, Reed Richards, there's plenty of science going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He could be a science consult on something in another movie. Heck, even even a miniseries like Falcon Winter Soldier, you could sort of find a way to stick him in there, and you could connect Sue to her brother Johnny. However you decide to do Johnny, which I still like the using Spider-Man to introduce the Human Torch angle, but these are things that, again, are not likely to happen. There's going to be a Fantastic Four movie. It's just a question of when, not a question of how or if. So it very well could be an origin movie, or they could find some cosmic reason why the Fantastic Four have always been around but haven't been around. Similar as they're going to have to do with the Eternals, most likely. So, but that again, that's all speculation based off of the possibility, and again, it's not likely that they'll bring in Victor Von Doom in the next Doctor Strange movie, the Multiverse of Madness. After the Doctor Strange movie is the What If series, and that could really grow into a monster on its own, because you can do anything in that series. For all the Netflix fans, I don't know what the contracts of the Netflix stars say, But if you're looking for a place for Luke Cage or Jessica Jones or the version of Daredevil, the Charlie Cox version of Daredevil, those characters might be able to appear in that cartoon series. I don't know. Again, it would depend on what kind of licensing contract Disney had with Netflix, because I think there's a cooldown time where they have to wait to use those characters in their own Disney Plus series once Netflix decides not to use them anymore, which of course has already happened. And I think most of the Netflix characters are kind of aware that though they're not coming back, at least not with those guys. I mean, you could get Luke Cage with Mike Coulter, but have to sort of say that, yeah, the rest of the Luke Cage stuff was non-canon or something like that. Or the same thing with Charlie Cox. I think that's the sort of the biggest save that they need to make, is they need to find some way to keep Charlie Cox as Daredevil, even if they have to lose some of the Daredevil stories. And they certainly need to keep D'Onofrio as the Kingpin. Although we've seen a Liev Schreiber Kingpin, and maybe that'll work. So there we go. We've blown up the Tinkerer. We've dealt with Bombardus. It's time to go home and be rewarded by a grateful nation who doesn't know that we're here and doesn't know that we're doing this. And in the comic, the Secret War comic, nobody would remember doing this. So